Bright lights, bright lights.
Hi and welcome to this week's Bright Lights of Roslyn Hill Unitarian Church, Hampstead. If you've got a candle, now is a fantastic time to light it with your family. We are the chapel of the open mind, the loving hearts, and of course the helping hands. If you'd like to press the joys and concerns pause to reflect button, please do so. Pause the video and take some time to share with your family your joys and concerns. Some of you will be excited to go back to school, I'm sure, tomorrow. So. This month is all about, so we're in March now, aren't we? We're in March. This month is all about commitment. And as Unitarians, there are different aspects to this. So one thing we like to do as Unitarians is to fulfill and renew our commitment to curiosity. Curiosity, that's a curious word, isn't it? What is curiosity? What is it to stay curious? Where I used to work at Wellcome Collection, which is a museum full of fascinating objects, they used to have a line on the front of the building and it said, "Stay curious. We want you to stay curious." We think curiosity is a great thing. It is a state to be in, to always seek new information and learning, to question things about the world and the way we do things and why they are what they are, and all the objects around us. It's about quietly challenging what is there. And tomorrow, Monday, so the day that everyone's hopefully going to be back in school, is also International Women's Day, or Women's Day. And the theme this year is to choose to challenge. And that's a really similar idea, isn't it? And they're celebrating women, especially who chose to challenge, who stayed curious about the way we do things in the past and wanted to make the world a better place. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun with commitment this month, but also this idea of curiosity. Just like Alice in Wonderland, when she was a bit curious, wasn't she? And one thing led to another and she just stayed curious. So here is a little story about the crow and how he stayed curious and how that helped him. And it's called The Crow and the Pitcher. And by pitcher, I mean a jug that looks a little bit like that. So have that in your mind. I'll be having this as part of the story. Mr. Crow was a big black bird. Have you ever seen a crow? They're sort of like ravens, a little bit smaller than a raven. Big black bird with a big black beak. And he lived at the top of a tree. He was a clever old creature. There's no problem you can't fix if you only take time to think about it, he would say. And over the years, old Mr. Crow had managed to solve all sorts of problems just through taking the time to settle his feathers and to have a good think. When he wanted to feast on a juicy clam that was hiding inside its tightly shut shell, Mr. Crow solved the problem by dropping the shell from a great height so that it hit the ground and burst open. "This clam sure tastes delicious," he called. "Caw, caw." "Go, go, Mr. Crow, you're the smartest bird we know," chirped the sparrow. Walnuts, and you know how big they are as nuts, they're really big and they're really tough on the outside, were even trickier for the crow to crack open, but Mr. Crow solved that problem too. He thought, how can I get the nut to crack open, the shell of the nut, so I can eat the tasty nut inside? I'll let the cars that drive by do the work for me, he called. And then he plucked a walnut from the tree and dropped it in the road just by the crossing. And a car drove over it and cracked the walnut open. When the traffic lights turned red and the traffic stopped, Mr. Crow hopped onto the road and pecked up the tasty nuts. Go, go, Mr. Crow. You're so clever, don't you know, chirped the sparrow. Then one day Mr. Crow came a problem he thought he couldn't solve, no matter how curious he stayed. But he kept thinking the weather had been hot and dry for weeks and all the water had dried up in the pond. Imagine that. Mr. Crow was very thirsty. It's hard to imagine that, but remember those really hot days when you're really thirsty? He was so thirsty, he flew for miles looking for water, but wherever he went, the streams and ponds were dry. Then he was flying by a farmhouse and he noticed a pitcher in the garden. Maybe someone had left it on a table, so you can see that there, like a jug, a little pitcher there. Maybe it was a bit taller and a bit narrower, but you get the idea. And the water inside was quite low down. It filled up with rain, maybe where that blue line is, about there. And he couldn't get his beak in, so he was pecking at it, but he couldn't. His beak would only go down to here. How was he going to get the water? Any ideas? How curious. The water was in there, but he couldn't get to it. What could he do? But I can't drink it, he said to himself, and without the water I will die of thirst. Let's think. This is a problem. Mr. Crow settled his feathers and thought for a while. He was thinking. His black beady eyes spotted a small stone. He thought, I wonder if this little stone could help me, he thought. Let's see. And then he got a few more stones and he had another little think. And he picked up one of the stones and he popped it into the pitcher. And that made the water go up a tiny bit. So then he thought about it some more. That's curious, he thought. If I put some of the stones in there, the water rises. Can you guess what he's going to do next? If his beak still can't reach the water, what would you do next? That's right. He got some more stones. He collected the stones, probably a bit bigger than the ones I've got, but you get the idea. And he got his beak and he popped them in and he watched, he probably dropped a few too. And he popped them in and he kept watching the water rise. And he dipped his, little by little, it worked, and he was flying backwards and forwards all day, it says here, dropping them in. Now the water finally had risen high enough that when he put his beak in, imagine that, so thirsty, he could reach the water. Now the water had risen high enough for his beak to reach. Go, go, Mr. Crow. You're so clever, don't you know? Chirped the sparrow. And the crow said, a problem is not a problem if you take the time to think, said old Mr. Crow as he settled down to drink. What do you think of that story? He stayed super curious. He was in a fix, in a problem. He was so used to getting all the answers, but he stayed curious and he was able to think through to problem solve, wasn't he, to get the water, which was so important. He had to use all his last bits of energy and he was really thirsty, but he stayed curious, and just by settling down with his feathers and having a little think about it, he was committed to staying curious, to finding a solution, and that's really fantastic. So, with curiosity in mind, now where have I put it? I've got a little activity for you. Here is a bag. if you've got something similar at home, great, or a little plastic bag, you can ask someone in your family to go on a little treasure hunt around the house and find some objects, mystery objects, objects that you don't know what will be put in the bag, okay? And then you can sit about all together, and the person who's filled it up obviously will know what's in there, but they can offer you the bag, and you have to keep your eyes closed and use your other senses to be a bit curious. In fact, I know what I've put in the bag, but by looking, it feels so different. You can take out one object and you can feel it, don't open your eyes, and you can sniff it. You can hold it up and see what noise, or give it a shake if it makes a sound. And you can have 3 guesses, and the person who filled it up can help you know whether you've got the answer right or not. If you don't get it, after 3 guesses, you can open your eyes and you can say, oh my gosh, of course, it was a pine cone. Or what else have I got in here? Ooh, a tennis ball. Or, oh, that felt a bit funny. Silky. It was some chalk. Whatever it is. And then what I'd like you to do as a family is to have a think and be curious about the objects, whether you guess them straight away or not. Have a curious think. Where did it come from? What is it made of? What do we use it for, if we use it for anything? Why does it open and close when it's rainy or dry, like this one? What could I do with it? Or perhaps, for instance, I've got a lovely pebble here that's been painted that we looked at in 5 Weeks of Calm. How can I create things? How can I make things better? Can I invent something completely new? Can I be curious enough to discover or invent something completely new? Which I love that idea. And have a little think. Where did this chalk come from? What is it made out of? Why is it this colour? How did they make it this colour? What should we do with it? Why do we do the things we do with it? Why don't we use other things? What's special about chalk? All these cool ideas. If you have some cool mystery objects that you want to share and say why you think they're fantastic, or what you learnt about them that you didn't know before, do let me know. Or if you want to do a lovely picture of the picture of the jug and the crow, I would love to see that. That would be so fantastic. Those are some activities you could do. So let's say the closing words together. As we leave this friendly place, love give light to every face. May the kindness that we learn and our curiosity light our hearts until we return. To blow it out. Stay curious, have a lovely week, and I look forward to hearing all about how it was to go back to school if you haven't been there already. Bye!
Bright lights, bright lights.